What can I say? When I connect with somebody that not only is an astrologer, but loves the language of the stars just as much as I do, I feel like I've met a kindred spirit in this lifetime. And I honestly believe I met Sancya through my friend Haley, which she's actually been friends with Haley way longer than I have. And it was almost like that, where I was like, she speaks my language. And I just feel so grateful to have you on the podcast today. So welcome to the Cosmic Hotline.
Hi, darling.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. And I'd love to be able to introduce you to our audience. And I want them to get to know you today as well, like I do, because I love the fact that every astrologer I connect with is we're beyond just an astrologer from an identity sake, but every person that I connect with that has a love for astrology, there's certain things that they're drawn to. And that's what I love so much is that because astrology I see as a language, not a belief system, we all have our own interpretations, our own translations, and things we're innately drawn to. And you, my friend, are like the queen of deep dives. And honestly, it just blows my mind. And I think some of my biggest epiphanies over the last year have really been instigated by some things that you've pointed me in the direction to that I didn't even factor into the equation. And for that, I'm eternally grateful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, all that Scorpio, so many deep dives. Sometimes I need people like you to help me come up for air.
I would love you to introduce yourself to everybody and share a little bit about your journey because one of the first things that I remembered when I first connected with you is that you were here, if I can remember rightly, for plants, planets, and prayers.
Yeah, that's my byline.
So, what drew you to the world of astrology and led you to this place?
I've always been a little witch and a little mystery seeker. I remember I bought my mum some tarot cards for her birthday when I was about 14, and then I just went to read them. I've always felt very connected to recognizing patterns and the synchronicity and the connection between things in nature and what was happening in my life, happening around me. I spent most of the last 10 years living in Peru in the Amazon, studying with traditional plant medicine out there, learning from indigenous healers and undergoing quite a few heavy duty initiations, supporting many people in their healing and their process of transformation. And during that time, through this deep observation of nature, the planets just kept coming into my psyche and showing up, and they came to me in very visceral ways. It was just very clear that there was a link between what the plants were showing me and the heavens. And I started, like everybody else, listening to podcasts and reading. And I think they say, like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's what happened. I came across the first person that I formally studied with. And like you say, with astrology, just like anything else, we all have our innate style, our innate evolutionary impulse towards working with it in a certain way or what it's serving. And so for me, astrology has always been a way to increase intimacy with the wider web of life, to increase this experience of unity and intimacy and connectivity, really as above, so below, as within, so without. And I'd say for the last 5 years, I've just been building that practice. I have been claimed by Venus. So I have a real special, deep interest in working with the cycle of Venus and the sun, working with the deities and plants and this broader rhythm of Venus in a ritual way. So I host ritual journeys as well as being a consulting astrologer. And yeah, I guess I consider myself a devotee ultimately. Yeah.
I think there's nothing better than being a devotee to the planets and to the greater world around us as well. And was there a moment that you can remember where you were innately drawn to Venus? Or was it like a series of serendipitous events that unfolded?
Oh, it was very potent and clear, and probably too much of a big story to go into here. But basically, on the day that Saturn was leaving the sign of my Saturn, so like the end of my Saturn return. Saturn left Sagittarius, moved into Capricorn, and I had I was sitting by the river playing my drum in the Amazon, and I often will meditate on the sound of the flowing water and music. I will start hearing tunes coming from the water, and a tune came to me, and it was "Inanna, inanna, inanna, inanna." I know we've sung that together. And I was singing it all day, and I got to the end of the day and I realized, I was like, I'm saying Inanna. This is the name of the deity. I've heard this somewhere before. And so I went and looked it up in one of the library books that we had and realized like this is a Sumerian goddess, one of the oldest written myths that has been found, and it's a story of feminine initiation by descent. So we've got the hero's journey that follows a narrative of going up and conquering obstacles and finding a new self. And this kind of trajectory, the feminine narrative goes down, loses something, dissolves, is transformed, and then rises again. And that story arc plays out all through myth and all through infinite different expressions. I was like, okay, wow, that's cool. What I didn't realize is that she's also deeply connected to the cycle of Venus. And within 24 hours, a nuclear bomb had dropped on my life and my marriage was ending. And it was just so massive. And the healing process was intimately tied with Inanna, opening up a connection with the rose, which is also very connected to Venus through geometry, not just through like vibes, but in some very tangible ways. That was in 2018. And ever since then, it's just been this slow unfolding and deepening working with Venus. Yeah.
Oh, that was like my first glimpse into what like a deep dive initiation with a planet could look like when we first connected. And anybody that listened, that potion that you gave me, it was honestly, it was just in my life at divine timing. I remember the day prior, the South Node had conjunct my natal Pluto, and it was the time of the Venus Cazimi, and kind of in a different way, my life blew up for the better. It was almost like my heart was cracked wide open, and over the months that followed that, and I remember saying to you, I've actually had to take note of everything that was happening in my life because it was just like everything was compounding. Just because I was open and receptive to that moment, I think with you to connect with the world and that planet and maybe even everyone else in a deeper capacity.
Yeah, 100%. The lineage of astrology and astronomy goes so far back to these old sky priests and priestesses at as far back as we know civilization goes and beyond, and making plant medicines, making remedies, making offerings, timing things with the planets and weaving it all together. It really is a potent
Mm.
way catalyze great transformation and bring it into our body, right? So you're knowing it and then it's happening inside as well. Yeah.
You need to be closer to me. So every time that we can plan anything ritualistic, because honestly, I think I'm somebody that is very discerning of who is in my auric field. And you, my friend, have a magic quality that is unlike anything else. And that combination of weaving things together. I'm a Mercury in Virgo. And sometimes I have to widen my worldview because I can get really caught up in the details.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. And your Virgo discernment, I'm a Virgo MC. It's very necessary because we are also talking about big powers. So I've worked with master plants, visionary plants, very strong shamanic initiations, and working with the planetary gods is freaking massive. And you do want to get things right. And I think get things right, quote marks. And, this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about today because everything's connected, everything's one, everything's related. It's all going to go back to God anyway. Yes. And also, how much trouble do you want to cause along the way to going back to the infinite? And there's an importance when we're zooming out and getting into all the expansive potential of, oh my God, I can weave together Venus and these plants and I can do this ritual and I can like channel and I can do this. And if we bite off more than we can chew, or we mix things together without that Virgo discernment and without Saturn, who we're going to talk about today, lucky for me, I'm a massively Saturn ruled person. But I think we also see people turning away from the potential of this deep intimacy and these great lineages of healing and priestessing that are available to us because there's just been so much watering down and chaos and commercialization and just BS basically that can actually cause real harm as well. So yeah, that's a real thing.
So should we start diving in? So really here we're today to talk about the Jupiter Saturn squares that are going to be playing out from August this year. Because like you, I was born on a Saturday, so Saturn is very much ingrained in who I am in this lifetime, and I definitely have an affinity to Saturn. Saturn gets such a bad rap, but I always say it's the one planet that actually sees your potential and wants you to grow. And the only caveat is Saturn will not reward you in that process. Saturn wants you to show up. And I love that about this planet because it does. It really forces you to go, what am I capable of? And I think too, because of my own experiences with Jupiter, we love a bit of Jupiter energy. Do not get me wrong, as speaks to luck and abundance and our belief systems and will absolutely reward us along the way. But also, Jupiter points to excess and overwhelm and overabundance. And I know for myself personally, I've ridden that Jupiter wave some years and come out the other side going, what even just happened? But the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you today is because you take note of these larger themes and cycles and these patterns. And that's what astrology is all about. It's not a singular one event. Everything is interconnected throughout history. And what I love so much is when we look towards history or we just look towards the own cycles and patterns in our own life, it can give us a lot of context as to not only how to work with the energy, but also the evolution of that energy taking place. So where should we start? Should we start with this larger theme? Because this is a big topic.
It is a big topic and it's a juicy one, and I love it. And I'm in a Jupiter ruled year this year. Yeah, I think when we talk about the Jupiter Saturn cycle, people might just be going, what are you talking about? To break it down really simply, when planets are moving around, let's say the zodiac, if we're picturing an astrological chart, so you're looking at the wheel, and at some point, those two planets will meet at the same degree of the zodiac. They actually might be quite far apart in the sky, but they're meeting at the same degree. And this is a conjunction. This is a merging of their two qualities where they meet, they have a conversation, and they birth a third magic energy together. And then that's the start of their cycle, so we could say. And then one of those planets will be moving faster than the other, so they'll start to separate. And as they separate, they will start making aspects back to each other. First, there'll be a sextile and onwards. And then the square, which is this 90-degree angle. If you draw a circle of the chart and draw a cross through the middle of it, that's your squares. And these are these 90-degree angles, which are really like the crossroads. Here we are having to really crunch up against the first big turning point in the story that started with that conjunction. And I would say that there's quite a difference between the first square that happens and the last square that happens before they meet again. So it can be hard to visualize this stuff when you're listening to audio, but I hope that puts some context into things. And then what's really interesting about Jupiter and Saturn is they have this deeper layer of magic. And this is why astrological cycles are so incredible. The whole universe is made of sacred geometry. Everything is this incredible, masterful design. It's so beautiful. Indigenous people know it. Ancient wisdom traditions know it. You see it reflected in art and science. And when we study the planets and their cycles, we see it again, all these patterns. So the pattern of Jupiter and Saturn is that they meet up roughly every 20 years. But what they will do is they will meet for roughly 200 years, I think, and only in signs of the same element. So they were meeting every 20 years only in earth signs. Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo, like this. And then on the summer solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, December 21st, 2021, they started their new cycle in air signs. So now every 20 years, they will meet in the air signs, which are Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. That's a mutation of their cycle. Elementally, everything we can see is made of earth, air, fire, and water. This is a frequency shift, a tone shift. They, in their dance, in their evolutionary dance of the universe expanding and getting to know itself in the process, have changed radio stations. And the fact that it happened on the solstice, that's not part of the pattern. That's just a powerful coincidence. And the fact that they met at 0 degrees of Aquarius, a power degree, 0 and 29 power degrees, the start and the end of a sign. This moment of their new cycle, it's not only the beginning of their new cycle together now, it's a macro cycle. So it's huge. And now we're coming up to that first square, not only since their last conjunction, but in their new cycle. This is brave new world shit, excuse my language. And there's a lot of layers to it. The only other thing I'll add is that Pluto, the great lord of the underworld, transformation, alchemy, catharsis, death and rebirth, is also currently at 0 Aquarius now. And that point of 0 Aquarius, it's just like ground zero for evolution on planet Earth, individually and collectively. And so having Pluto sitting there when the first Saturn-Jupiter square happens in the new cycle, it's informing us more about what is this about? What is the real invitation? What are we working with?
You know what? Even since Pluto has been in Aquarius, there's so much destabilizing energy. Because as you absolutely said, there's this ground zero energy that's percolating. And I think we tend to operate in default mode and default setting. And we can't do that anymore. We have to look at the way we're operating in the world and also look at our contribution and how we can be not only leading ourselves through that, but be a part of the bigger cause.
Yeah, participating in collective change. And any cycle that starts in Aquarius, Aquarius rules the 11th house of community, of tribe, of the people, power to the people, pollution and uprise and political destabilization on a whole new level. And then that has been teamed with the other big feature of Aquarius, which is like new tech, innovation, science, the future is now. Things are getting very sci-fi on planet Earth, and they're getting very dystopia, utopia. What is the big future that we're moving into? And honestly, I think it's both. And what I see is that the function of Jupiter and Saturn is they're considerers, really.
Yeah. That's a cool way of looking at them as well.
Because the way they work together, Jupiter having so much to do with where things are expanding, with our ideals, with religion, where the growth is happening in a really rapid expansion kind of a flavor, more, 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 more. And Saturn being like, and but here's the edge, and but here are the limits, and but here are the consequences of everything you're doing. And that push and pull somehow gives birth to the actual structures of our lives that we all have to inhabit together. So when they met at 0 degrees Aquarius, starting this new cycle, what was going on? It was late 2021. We were looking at the lockdowns were slowing down, but we had all this new COVID related stuff. Like we hadn't been able to see our mates, Saturn in Aquarius. No, you will stay home and not see your friends. A lot more surveillance, a lot more tech, like everyone was on Zoom. All of the division that was happening around people's ideology, like that was really massive. Do you vaccinate yourself and take care of the collective that way? Or do you go for individual freedom and not do it? And that's how you take care of the collective. Like these are very big Aquarian themes. And the other thing I'll say about 0 Aquarius, it didn't happen then, it happened a little bit later, but that's the Chat GPT degree. Pluto hit 0 Aquarius. ChatGPT was launched and AI, even though it had been brewing in the background for a while, it was on everybody's tongue. And so we are surging ahead with all of those themes now. And we're about to hit a point where they crunch up again to each other in a new way. And we have to negotiate, I think, and reconcile some consequences and some edgy stuff around what have we all been doing personally and collectively since December 2020 until now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually so happy that Saturn is in Pisces because I truly believe without that Piscean energy, it could be absolute chaos.
What are you feeling from Saturn and Pisces? What are the things that are really jumping out to you?
Yeah, the promises and the commitments we make to ourselves. That's really what I see Saturn Pisces is. It's like the things that we've always said or the things that we hold as important to us. How do we show up and do that, whether that's from an individual standpoint or a collective standpoint? And I think for myself personally, is that real need to not only look at what's mine and what's yours, but also to look at like, where do I want to spend my time and energy? And this is the really interesting thing with having a business. And I've only really stepped back and taken a look in the last year is like, how much of my life do I actually live online versus how much actually happens in the real world? And how can I have more of what I actually want? And like you said before, I think it's a real bridging of worlds and we need to be able to factor in both. But I keep coming back to these promises we keep to ourselves, like, how do we honor those and ritualize those and really approach life as sacred and really intentional? Because I think that we can get pulled into one direction too much and then the other direction too much as well. It's like, how do you find the middle ground in all of that?
And it's funny that you say the middle ground and the middle way because Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac, right? It's where everything dissolves back into the oneness. It can be like confusion, illusion, delusion, escapism, and then the great mystery, the big open blue horizon of like multidimensional reality. But when you say the middle way, for me, Saturn and Pisces, the day that Saturn moved into Pisces, I went to an open day at the Dunedin Tibetan Buddhist Center. And I was like, oh my God, Buddhism, like Saturn, lineage, a disciplined practice, having a whole lot of structure around and having to show up and be patient and put in the mahi and put in the work to anchor into what? Unity consciousness,
Yep.
the infinite, compassion. It's like the vastness of the internet, the vastness of all the information, the vastness of all the potential. It's only useful. It's only medicine. It's only going to land on the 3D. I really believe that Saturn is such an interesting planet, right? He's that edge of what we can see. He's the last planet we can see with the naked eye. Saturn is the guy that brings all that mystical, mysterious stuff that we can't see, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. He brings it into the earthly realm. He rules the laws of earth in a way.
Mm.
And so with all the stuff that's going on with AI and all these big changes and all of the stuff, Saturn's, yeah, but how do you put some firm and clear and loving boundaries around that so it still has integrity?
Absolutely. And I think that's why I love Saturn's presence so much, is because there's a practicality to it. You can't get so swept up in one direction. Always about what's your bottom line, where's the middle road, and how do you find your center and all of it.
That's it, 100%. And right now, with what's happening in the media, okay, this is feeding massively into what the Jupiter Saturn squares are going to be unfolding on a macro level, on a geopolitical level. And I think we can always see how it trickles down into our personal lives is that people don't know what's real. With social media exploding, we're watching mega conflict, real time, power to the people. This is a cycle that started in Aquarius, social media just sharing all this stuff. And people don't trust the news because we're experiencing a massive breakdown of the old system that happened when Pluto moved through Capricorn. But the new system doesn't make any sense to us yet.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's coming up is like paranoia, conspiracies. The world doesn't make sense. I don't know what's real. So I'm going to become obsessed with trying to figure it out. It's like the amount of flat earth videos that I get sent. And I love this with my Saturn and Pisces clients, people that are in their Saturn return now, or either their first or their second Saturn return. They just have this awesome innate spiritual wisdom. They're spiritually mature. They can discern. And okay, let's say there's tons of evidence that we don't live on a spherical earth. The good question is, why does it matter?
Yeah,
Why does it
absolutely.
matter if NATO's lying to us? What do you more deeply know? And this is your point about promises that you keep to yourself. What is the deeper spiritual integrity and values that you are actually showing up for day to day? Or are you just escaping into the freaking chaos of all the information to avoid actually doing what Saturn wants you to do, which is sit down and meditate,
Yep.
grow a garden, make your prayers, be kind to an old person?
Practice
Like,
yoga.
exactly. And yes, it's good to be informed to help us make those decisions, but we need to get discerning with the media we consume and the choices that we make based on it. Because if you look at the US elections, which are coming up, the last opening square, which is what we're in now, of Jupiter and Saturn, was around 2004. And that was when the internet started massively influencing politics, right? It was the war on terror. Bush got back in. They had just invaded Iraq, which we now know was super dodgy. Julian Assange is free. Yay, WikiLeaks. I don't know. I feel like that's all connected. And it's also like culty stuff, like culty, spiritual, new age charlatanism, basically, and just
Oh,
predatory spirituality preying on people's wounds. Saturn's coming in to really rein that right in too,
yeah.
to rein it right in.
Yeah, which I'm so here for. And I think that's why we've seen such a shift. I don't know if you've seen this with clients, but I do know some particular people I work with based on the industry that they're in. Like if they're in a personal development industry, some of them have really taken a hit, but it's because there's so many people out there that are projecting one thing and it's all smoke and mirrors. But we're way more conscious, but we have to stay grounded in that pursuit because otherwise we'll think the grass is greener or somebody's going to sell us this amazing idea. And it doesn't matter if they're esoteric or they're telling you they're a coach or whatever, but yeah, things are changing and you have to be able to make very conscious decisions in your own process.
And one of the great powers of Pisces is frequency. Okay, so we're looking at all of this media, we're looking at deep fakes and AI and like all of this stuff. One of the other things that Pisces rules is altered states of consciousness. And we have Neptune, the modern ruler of Pisces, sitting at the final degree of the zodiac. And that's like a whole nother podcast. Psychedelic therapies getting integrated into Western health models. We're seeing people like more and more interested in microdosing psilocybin for depression. We're seeing all these studies come out. And that's that multidimensionality, the altered states. And of course, that's fraught as well as having a beautiful aspect to it, where if people could have a direct experience of the interconnected nature of everything and everyone, we might be less divisive. We might be less politically ignorant. We might be more compassionate and unified in our humanity and with the environment, and realizing that everything doesn't just start and finish with like your paycheck, your house, your little small life, and this freaking out about, oh my God, I've got to get everything done in this 70 years that I have, or what? You will die. Yes, you will. Like, there's Saturn's like he's expanding and grounding. And I think now when we look at all that Saturn and Pisces stuff, it's okay, what's Jupiter and Gemini up to? And how's that going to square against this? We've only had Jupiter and Gemini for a month. Are you exhausted yet?
It's like I was so honestly, I was so excited. And then I like 2 weeks and I was like, oh no, this is wild. This is not what I had anticipated. And I think it's because we've got Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah. And that he tried Pluto, and I've just felt so like ADHD scattered, pulled
Nervous system.
many directions, can't make a freaking decision, like so many ideas at once, but how do I ground them and choose which thing? Now, this brings me back to what I was saying about Saturn and Pisces being about frequency, and Jupiter and Gemini. So Gemini is Mercury ruled. It's about the mind. It's about the ideas. It's about the talking and the options and the information. Jupiter's blowing it all up, making it bigger, throwing 50 doors of inspiration open at once. And then there's just this kind of overwhelm on multiple levels, right? I think overwhelm is the kind of starting point, and that's probably what people are going to start noticing around the build up to August 20th when the first square hits. Is I'm just overwhelmed. I'm being pulled in too many directions. Start, stop, go, whoa, like push, pull. And that can be very disorienting. But in terms of working with it, because as astrologers, we're always, poor us, where attention goes, energy flows. So we like feel everything for longer and sooner so that we can share this good news and help everybody else work with it. What I'm finding is it's like with Saturn and Pisces, can you, instead of getting overwhelmed by all the potential, can you just drop into your freaking body, Saturn, slow down, come into that meditative Pisces place, come into your heart, come into some silence, come into some stillness, and feel into something. Feel like on a frequency level, not with your mind, not with what you think it is. That's all the Jupiter and Gemini just like skitzing us out. Here's the invitation. Would you like to go to Sally's birthday party on Sunday, or would you like to go on a date with the dude from last week? Just look at those two options and just think of one and notice what it feels like on a frequency level, and then notice what the other one feels like on a frequency level. Those different ways of knowing, it's not about knowing absolute truth. And it's the same with when we're discerning media, when we're getting information about this political thing or this war or this ideology or this new thing that we should be scared of or this freaking planet's flat. Just instead of needing to know the truth and clinging onto it psychotically and making yourself more stressed, drop into the frequency that feels expansive, that brings you into love, that brings you into a sense of like compassion and groundedness, and just go that way and trust that Saturn in Pisces is really here to get us spiritually on track for what's coming, which is going to be like 100 times more intense than what's happening now.
Wait till we've got all that fire energy start to kick in the next 2 years.
Saturn and Aries, oh my
Yeah.
God, forget about it. Forget about it.
The good news is, though, with what that will involve is hopefully there'll be less talk and there'll be more action. I think that's what I'm most excited about, because it's almost like we have to put everything on the table right now, like all of our ideologies. What do we believe? Is it you against me? It's like we're clearing the air. But what can happen in that process is that we sit in it, we ruminate in it, we want to be right versus who's wrong. Does have that real prehistoric cult mentality of, are you in the tribe or are you against the tribe? So I do hope that when we do have that Aries energy coming in, that there'll be less talk about it and strategizing and actually go, no, how do we actually work together to start to move the collectives, the environment forward? Because that's really what we need more than anything. But I get it, when we've got all of the cerebral energy lingering, it makes it tough, because I think everyone wants to have a say about something, and we've got so much access to information. It's just the era we're in right now. The only way forward is through.
I think like Jupiter and Gemini, this first square on the 20th of August, Pluto will be at 0 Aquarius. So it's really that Pluto and Aquarius era that's coming in, that's going to start in November, and it's going to be 20 years of ground zero evolution in Aquarius. That's going to be really highlighted. But Saturn will be retrograding,
Yeah.
and he's in Jupiter's sign. Pisces is Jupiter's sign. He is in Jupiter's territory, and yet Jupiter doesn't like being in Gemini. Jupiter doesn't fall in Gemini. And Saturn likes Pisces because Pisces rules the 12th house and essential dignities. Saturn's in his joy in the 12th house. So I do feel like Saturn retrograde has the upper hand for this first square. You're feeling like there's all this stuff opening up in your life and you just overwhelmed with information and you're feeling pulled in too many directions, or maybe a whole lot of new stuff started and now you're hitting obstacles and it feels like it's not working. You're doubting your choices. I'm definitely in that place. I think the answer is to like do the Saturn and Pisces work, which is like work with Saturn, slow down, be spiritually discerning, get into your heart, let your head serve your heart, not the other way around. Because when we go into this Pluto in Aquarius era for 20 years from November, the sign opposite Aquarius is Leo. And I'm pretty sure you've got some like, are you like Leo rising or something?
I'm Leo rising. I have Mars and Leo conjunct my ascendant.
Yeah. Here we go. Like big love energy. You have such big love energy. Like you make people feel like loved as soon as you talk to them. And the thing with that is that our hearts are going to be getting confronted massively. So we need to like do the work to really get our heart wisdom online. And I think that just like meditate, like the all of it is just start meditating potentially.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. And I think some people probably do get like a little bit frustrated with me or what they see online with all of these stillness practices. But honestly, the best thing that you can do, it is not about reinventing the wheel. And I love a good wellness hack. Do not get me wrong. Go have an ocean swim at sunrise or do some hot and cold therapy. Get your ass into a sauna, right? All of these wellness practices can make us feel really good, but nothing compares to regulating your nervous system, slowing down, taking a breath, meditating, visualization, reading a book, journaling, start a conversation with yourself, or go for a walk. That's what I've been doing in the mornings. I think we take them for granted, even our breath, but that is what is going to pull us through. And you're so right when you were saying before about breathing into your heart and turning off your head for a hot moment. Like that is the best thing anyone can do right now. But I think we just, again, we operate in that default setting and we've been so conditioned to be busy and hustling, but you don't want to be forced to slow down. If there's anything that I've learned about working with the stars and the planets, is that if you do not listen and pay attention, they will force you to stop. And there's nothing worse than when you feel like your life has become hindering rather than helpful. And if you're anything like me, sometimes you need the universe to give you a bit of a wake up call because you're not paying attention.
100%. And I do believe that all astrology is a map. It's not the territory. The territory is our experience. It's the multidimensional universe. And that all of these are evolutionary invitations that have different spectrums of experience. I had Pluto on my sun. You saw where I was at. It was gnarly. I talk about it and people are like, fuck, Pluto's coming for my sun. I'm like, honey, you don't have the same karma as me. You don't say have the same chart as me. I had a lot of Plutonian shit to work through, and that's why it went the way it did. I've seen someone else have Pluto hit their sun and become a millionaire in 6 months. It can go either way. And I think knowing the dates, so when you're feeling these pivots and these negotiations and these adjustments that need to happen between Saturn's desire to integrate, consolidate, discern, be with the patience and the longer cycles of time. Saturn loves a long game. He loves quality over quantity, all of that stuff, crunching up against Jupiter's expansive desire to blast us into the new horizon and bring in all the opportunities and show us what's possible. Pessimism versus optimism. It's very binary and it's more nuanced than that. But when you're learning astrology or you're just trying to simplify it a bit, those are good ways to look at it. We're going to have the first square on the 20th of August. And then at Christmas, December 24th, 25th.
Yeah, 14 degrees.
Are you loving that? Are you excited about that?
I don't mind, but my heart goes out more to everybody else because I know that can be quite a tense time for a lot of people. And then to add that second square in the mix, which always is the apex, right?
Yeah, it's like a show in three parts, right? And the negotiation at crossroads in three parts. And this time, the second one, Jupiter will be retrograde. So people might find themselves coming back to some of the things that exploded open when Jupiter moved into Gemini at the start. Ideas, invitations for me, it was like, all this is my sixth house of work and daily routines. So it was just like, come and do this retreat with me, collaborate with this podcast, this client, this idea, this thing. And I was like, I can't do all of that.
Yeah.
I want to, but I can't scale that fast. My nervous system can't metabolize that much growth that quickly, and I can't do it well, which is what Saturn wants. He wants you to do it properly, stay in integrity. So I feel like around Christmas, like this first square on the 20th of August, it's okay. All the balls went up. Some of them are just going to have to drop, and you're just going to have to catch the few that are most important and work with them. And then December, I feel like there might be a little bit of a picking a few more balls up with that Jupiter retrograde, but also recognizing what's important. What am I in service to? What new structures am I going to be part of building in this world? Because the age of sticking our heads in the sand, hyper individualism, super rampant consumerism, benefiting from globalization, but not really taking responsibility for what it means for most of the people on the planet, because of climate change, because of the what's happening geopolitically. We don't live on a planet anymore that is this country, that country, all these. No, there's these huge new powers forming. There's Web3. There's a new internet being born that is going to have a whole new financial system on it. I'm talking about Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance. This is all going to be kicking off when Pluto gets back into Aquarius in November. So by Christmas, we'll be right in that too. And with all the new information and like learning how to position yourself in this brave new world, it's like you need to lead with your values, because in the end, if you just try and navigate this all with your head, you are just going to end up being at the mercy of chaos, basically, which I feel like Jupiter and Gemini kind of can be chaos.
That's a really great point that you make on values. And I think for anybody listening is to reflect back on what were the values you cultivated over the last year when Jupiter was in Taurus, because they'll be such beautiful reminders and they should act as your North Star moving forward. Because Gemini has this tendency, oh, this is shiny. Oh, let's chase this. And it's no, how can I anchor back into my heart? And what were some of the things that resonated and transpired over the last 12 months? Because they should help to guide you.
Yeah, I love the way that the zodiac builds on itself like that fixed earth comes before mutable air. We're always being invited to be brought into balance in this way. And I would also say that the values that were emerging through lockdown, like so many people,
Yeah, beautiful.
2021, when this Jupiter Saturn cycle started, all the people that started baking and gardening and like all the things that when you get off the hamster wheel, what do you actually end up doing?
Yeah.
And you're not addicted to the internet, when you're not like this, that, the other. That's important too. And then the third square, God, I just look at this and I'm like, whoa, Saturn's retrograde on the first square, Jupiter's retrograde on the second square, and on the third square, they're both direct. There are new signs. The North Node's in a new sign. And this is like, we are onto the new journey and we've had to work to bloody get there.
You literally just gave me chills because I was looking at the chart for that day and it's going to be huge because with having that North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, and then Saturn will be in Aries and Jupiter will be in Cancer, and they're both at 1 degree. Like it's not just them starting a new cycle, like they're literally starting a new cycle together. But then it's ending at the same time. And that's the thing, right? It's like closing a chapter before embarking on a new one. There is a real darkness before the dawn.
It definitely is. I am trying to look at that chart because I just think it would be nice for us to, I don't know, be a hope dealer. I say sometimes, I'm like, look, I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass and make you feel like you don't have to take responsibility for your life. I'm still a Saturnian, but I do like to be a little bit of a hope dealer for people and be like, look, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to die. You're going to die. Guaranteed. That can be, I think, relieving to think about, in the sense of don't panic and stress out about trying to control everything, because this is impermanent. This is more Pisces stuff, right?
Yeah.
Everything's impermanent. Everything's going back to the infinite. But wow. Okay. Wow. Saturn at 1 degree of Aries, a new cycle, a whole lot of new Saturn return people kicking off their big cycle. Aries is the first side of the zodiac, the god of war, led by Mars, ruled by Mars, and Saturn's going to be with Neptune. For me, it's not hopeful in terms of peace on Earth. I think this could be full on, and especially because we're also very soon after that going to have Uranus moving into Gemini, and then we're going to have, around the middle of next year, we've got this Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus all in new signs in the early degrees, all touching each other. And then Jupiter's just moved into Cancer. It's you want to talk about destabilization, you want to talk about expect the unexpected, or don't ever do the disservice of thinking that things are going to go back to how they used to be, because it's just not happening.
No way. There's not even a possibility that it could. We're too far gone. We're going into a completely new trajectory, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. It's going to be in this constellation until 2043. So it's going to be this slow burn of evolution and transformation.
And how do we participate in that, Lee? Because what I love about Aquarius and Pluto being in Aquarius is that it's yes, Aquarius rules the collective and wants to support the tribe and uplift everybody together. Sometimes it wants to make everybody the same.
Yeah.
And it's like the high and the low expressions. I really like Aquarius when it's going, I celebrate your unique genius. I urge that, because when we're all in our unique zone of genius, we collectively uplift. And that's why we're seeing so much push and pull and tension and us versus them and ideology and all of this stuff playing out, which the Saturn Jupiter squares are really going to enhance. Religious wars, political wars, ideological, just people freaking out about don't let the drag queens near my kids, or like whatever. And it's not about so much what's right and wrong. It's about how we deal with difference and how we creatively collaborate to build this new world that's emerging. Because if we just get stuck in victimization, low Pisces, ADHD distraction, low Gemini Jupiter, we become disempowered. We are not creatively participating in evolution. And as someone who's just had Pluto throw a wrecking ball through their life, the one thing Pluto will do is it will show you where you're addicted to false power, and it will show you what your true creative power is and what true empowerment is. But you have to go through this journey. And one of the big things that Western culture, if you can call it that, is really struggling from is a lack of critical thinking, a lack of, we all just had marketing degrees and defunded the arts, and nobody's learning to critically think anymore. And so this is a problem. And this is what I think these Jupiter Saturn squares, they might suck. You might feel like you don't like it, like you're being roadblocked, like you're being pulled in many directions, but keep your eyes on the prize. It's a creative opportunity, and we are all artists. We are all contributing to the birthing pains of this new era. So how do we want to do that? And we will stumble and fall, and it will hurt, and lives will be lost. Neptune's at the last degree of the zodiac. It's the end. It's not pretty, but we need to find that source of life and light in our hearts to steer the ship, because the outside world's not going to do it for us.
Mm, absolutely. That's prevalent to what we're navigating right now. And I'm 100% certain that so many people tuning in will be able to take different things away from this episode. And I love that so much about astrology, is that it's what are you ready for? And this will be something that you'll be able to come back to also over the next 12 months. But to round out everything, for anybody listening, what should they take away? What would be the one thing that you would love them to anchor into as something to help them to navigate over the next 12 months?
Fear is a natural response to the unknown. However, we can feel those feelings. We can feel the fear. We can feel the optimism. We can feel the confusion. We can feel the terror. We can feel all of it. We don't have to believe it. We don't have to make it absolute truth. Stay open to being surprised by the new structures that your life can birth when you are led by your deepest values and your body's wisdom and the love that you have. People are only fighting against something because they love something else. Focus on what you love. Do the Neptune and Pisces thing. A unity consciousness, not dominator consciousness. That's my message.